Hello, I'm Suzanne Porath, and this is
Haley Unruh.
and we're here to talk to you about Epic, which is an amazing book app that we hope when we're done that you will want to try with your classes. So to start us out, Haley is going to talk about why we started this research.
So when I was still in college at K-State, I was substitute teaching a lot, and I noticed that the teachers that I would sub for would write Epic into their sub plans, like give them this much time to be on Epic, and the kids knew exactly what to do. They got on it. And at first I thought that that was awesome. And then as I started to watch a little bit more, the video feature in Epic was primarily the thing that I noticed that the students would choose on to engage with. So my opinion changed a little bit to like, how great is this app for reading that really the kids are just using is almost like a YouTube free time. And then once I started this research and learned more about the app and how to use it to guide my instruction, I realized that I absolutely love it and would like to share more about it.
So if you haven't heard about Epic, Haley's going to talk about the features of Epic.
So Epic has a library of 35,000 books, from picture books to chapter books. They have audiobooks and a read to me feature that I will talk about later. Next slide. Sorry.
No, that's good.
They also have an advanced search option where the students or yourself can use it to look up titles, authors, keywords. There's been times that I Google, or I guess I don't Google, I search a science term and then I get picture books over that science concept that I can share with my class or assign it to them. Also, you can search by topic, by the read to me feature, or by audiobooks, along with like grade level or AR/Lexile levels.
And the read to me feature?
Oh, I'm looking at two different screens. Sorry. The read to me feature is a feature where primarily on picture books, it's like an audio book recorded with the page. So the students can listen along like a read aloud like you would do with the text on the page. The app will turn the page for them, or the students can interact with it to click forward on it. There's also the highlight text feature that is embedded in the read to me feature. You can see it on that Lassie to the rescue. The word harness is bolded, and it's great to encourage the one-to-one spoken word, written word correspondence with younger students, but you can also turn it on and off. Then there's the front summary page with each book that tells you about how long it'll take to read, a little bit about the book and the author. And yes. There's also an embedded dictionary. It took me a while to find this one. I accidentally found it and I loved that I did. You can click and hold on the iPad or on the computer on the word, and it comes up with the definition of the word and the pronunciation of it. Then there's the video one. They're considered learning videos, and I don't love them. I'm gonna leave it at that.
But I will say some teachers do embed them in their collections because it has something to do with the topics that they are studying.
They do. And then others I feel like are designed for entertainment. But when it's a Friday and it's a fun day, like fun in the afternoon, like the how-to videos, like I watched a second grader the other day do how-to Legos that I'm sure he was super engaged with, that I'm sure he went home and built or did later that day in centers.
So when Haley first came to me talking about Epic, I had not heard about it. And so she showed me what it was and all of the different features, and we decided to do some research together. So doing a little bit of background, I'm fairly old, so I remember some of the very early storybooks that were animated on the computer where you had to load them in a computer. Now we've got so many different features that are available, and like Epic itself, there are hundreds of thousands of texts that are available in these. Children are really drawn to this interactive format because exactly that, they can interact. But there is really limited research on multimedia storybook use in the classroom. A lot of research that is out there are things like Kindles or other types of ebooks, but the interactive nature of this one specifically, how you can turn on the read to me feature, have the highlight feature, that type of thing, there's not a lot of work out there. So we designed the study with a couple of phases. One phase was an anonymous survey that was distributed through Twitter. Anybody who tagged a post that had something to do with their use of Epic in the classroom, I asked them to be part of the survey. And the survey had 21 forced choice things, 3 Likert sale, and a couple of open-ended ones. And then because of where we are right now, I did have them do some comparison of their use of Epic before COVID and then after COVID, or post, well, we're not quite post yet, but as we have come back to classrooms. Then some people volunteered to be part of an interview, and I am still working on some of those, but we have several interviews completed already with a semi-structured protocol, so I can get a better idea of how they're using in the classroom. And then Haley is doing observations of children using Epic, so we can see how children are actually interacting it with the app itself when they have the opportunity to do it independently. So one of the things we found very early was in the research that teachers are using it in lots of different ways in their classrooms. And I grabbed some screenshots of things on Twitter because they are public. And so you can see what teachers are doing out there. If you actually search for @Epic for the number kids, you can see what teachers are doing in the classroom. So they're using it in whole group and small group. They're using it in center time. They're doing it for independent time. They're embedding it in their project-based learning because it is a huge library of text, both fiction and nonfiction. And right now, especially with a lot of classroom and school libraries being closed because of COVID, students have access to their own personal library. Many schools are using it with accelerated reader. They're listening to books. And in some cases, they're using it at a home, but if you've got a classroom Epic account, it shuts down at like 3:30 or 4, correct, Haley?
I believe it's 4, but yes.
So unless they have an account at home, they won't be able to access it until the next morning again. You can see at the bottom, I thought that was a really cool and March Madness tournament of books. So what teachers really appreciated was how easy it was to use. It was very intuitive. The children take to it very quickly, and Haley can speak a little bit more to that in a bit. There is such a huge diversity of texts. They're high quality texts. Many of them are ones that you would see in a bookstore. Students can very easily research topic with that advanced features. There's titles in other languages. So for English language learners, it is a great resource. It's it can be integrated into whatever LMS you have, or if you do a Bitmoji classroom. And it also has that text leveling, so you can very quickly differentiate instruction based on different topics, but for different reading levels. And at the top, you can see the picture of the caterpillar. There's lots of challenges that you can set up. And as an educator, you have access to a record of everything your children are reading through Epic. So you can see what they're reading, how fast they're reading it, when they're abandoning books, all of that type of thing. And it's very easy to access that. And then one of the things a lot of teachers talked about was the creation of the collections so that they can time to whatever the units they're doing. They can do it for small group instruction. And you can share those collections across Epic to other teachers.
And in addition to being able to see what your students are doing, you can also assign them books. So there's particular students that I know their reading level is not at our 5th grade reading level, but I will find a book that's nonfiction to that I just click assign to this student, and then it just pops up on their page, and then they read it and I see how they do on it. And many of the books even have like a practice quiz at the end. Not all of them. I haven't figured out which ones, like why some do and some don't, but the practice quizzes are super helpful because our school does AR and they go through the practice quiz. I see how they do, and then we'll decide if we want to take an AR test from there.
Mm-hmm. But I do know that some teachers have told me sometimes, depending on how old the students are, they get confused if the Epic quiz is the AR quiz, and it's not.
It's not. That is not in our AR database.
Yep. So some of the challenges that the teachers talked about, as Haley already said, being distracted by the video selections, that access at home, like I said, the time is off at 4 o'clock, but even for schools who have been remote, it's available in the daytime, but you do have to have decent internet for it to be able to be used at home. Some teachers also talked about that the parents or the guardians of their kiddos are not really paying attention to what their students are doing in Epic. And they would appreciate if parents and families would be a little bit more involved in that. If you're a non-reader, the navigation can be tricky because it is fairly text-based. It's not terribly intuitive for non-readers. And something Haley talked about early was she's noticed some kids are like really flipping around books and not picking just one, or they're trying one, didn't like it, move on. And so there's not sustained reading in some cases. A couple of teachers talked about that there's not a great searchability specifically for phonics patterns. So if you're using this in your instruction, you really have to get to know the books by going through them. The Epic class itself can't connect to other classes or teachers. You can share a collection, but your classes themselves can't be connected. And a couple of teachers talked about how American-centric the titles are. Even though there are books in other languages, they're still very much United States authors, not just English authors across the world. And a couple, yeah, go ahead.
I would like to add something I forgot to talk about since I've started teaching. It syncs with Google Classroom really well. So if your school uses Google Classroom, you can go into Epic and add like classroom from Google Classroom. So I did that and all of my kids are there. They type in their code, our class code, and then they just click on their name and they're going.
That's cool. I didn't know that. A couple teachers talked about there's some inaccuracies in some of the videos, and so they want to be aware of that, especially if they're using it for teaching, but also sometimes students might report out inaccurate information that actually came from the videos. I think you said, Haley, that you've turned off the videos for your students.
No, I haven't turned it off. I usually, when I give them free Epic time, I make sure that they read like at least 2 nonfiction books if we have time, and then you can watch videos.
So the videos are kind of a reward.
Yes. And I can track to see if they actually read the books first.
So one of the things I saw, because I did ask about before and after COVID, a lot more teachers are using Epic during COVID times, both because of remote instruction and because of if you're face-to-face like Haley is able to do, sharing books can be more problematic, having to put them in quarantine and things like that. Pre-COVID times, it was usually a supplement for a lot of people, and now it is a primary source for books for all of those things that we do in the classroom, from read alouds to independent reading. And for some teachers that responded to our survey and our interviews, they just first started using it during COVID time, not beforehand. So couple of innovative uses of it. First of all, there's the ability to collaborate a lot, not in Epic itself, but using Epic for things like book battles, or like we saw the March Madness. So that can be created, and then everybody has access to the same books, which isn't always true if you're in different schools or different school districts. There is that reading challenge where you saw the caterpillar that is kind of embedded in that, but because teachers have great access to all of the records of what the kids are doing, you can easily see how many books any single child has read, but also as a collective class. Then there's a lot of really great app smashing, and that's when you take more than one app and you use them together. And I list a whole bunch of for comprehension checks, using Book Creator, Padlet to connect and talk about books, doing book reports and book trailers through Flipgrid. Some are doing Nearpod, so they're doing a virtual field trip and then going into the nonfiction books that they're reading. There's lots of use of Jamboards, so students can talk about what they're reading with small groups. And so one of the great things about reading is that it's not just a solitary event. It is something that can be shared with others. And Haley can talk a little bit about how much your students are talking about books and then reading because of that.
Yeah, so in my classroom, I've started to do a thing where started just to do book talks where the kids just tell, like, they get a minute because some will talk forever, um, to tell me the title, the author, what's going on in their book, what they've learned, and then um, I've had it started like at the very beginning. I had one kiddo talk about the series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket, and now I have like 5 or 6 kids on that one. And just today, one of my kiddos was like, "Oh, you're reading that one? I hated that one. That one was the worst," because he did not like how it ended, but he's still reading the series.
And so your students are creating what Lucy Calkins calls the readerly life, that they are seeing themselves as readers and sharing their reading with others. So overall, the big thing that we have found so far this research is one of the most important things about Epic is that children have access to an entire library. It is digital, but it is an entire library with all of the nonfiction and all of the fiction at the same time that some children have never had that kind of access to before this. Pre-COVID times, it was quite often supplementary, and now it's very primary. And the teachers I've talked to, and Haley, you probably can speak to this too, it's not going to go away after we're back to quote normal. The teachers really appreciated being able to create those collections, whether it's based on a theme, on an interest, or on levels, because it was a very easy way. I mean, we used to use book boxes where we'd put stuff together and have to physically hand them out. And here we can very quickly individualize collections for individual students or individual purposes. And that teacher setting is so incredibly important because you can see how long your kid has been in a book. And if they keep constantly flipping from one to another, that's a great conversation for conferences. All of the teachers who have volunteered for this study would recommend it to other teachers. I know, Haley, you've been talking up in your school and you're starting to see more and more people using it. But overall, very few schools require students to access Epic at home on personal accounts because that can get really pricey for families. Haley, is there anything you want to comment on this part?
No, not really.
Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of new questions.
So, I'm a learner, and when I first saw, I'm going to jump around on these bullets, but when I first saw the highlighted text feature, I thought that that was great for the one-to-one correspondence between like spoken text and written text. But then I started to think a little bit more about how that's not how our eyes read. We read in bursts. And while with young students, we do have them point to each individual word to help them learn to read, we also want to like make sure that they become fluent readers. And I wondered if that was going to set them back in that or not, or just push them forward. Um, Another is that if it boosts reading comprehension, and I think now that I've started teaching rather than just substitute teaching and I've graduated, I think it does. Reading and being read to boost comprehension, and it also just encourages kids to just want to read. And that's what we want to do. That's what a good reading curriculum is that kids want to read and want to learn more about books. Another is that, and I think this just goes all around in education, we are pushing technology at kids. Most schools are one-to-one, even down to first grade. Each kid has their own iPad or own Chromebook that they use, and we're starting to see more and more ADHD in students. And I wonder if that's because we have so much of that blue light that we're just shoving at them. And also if students are going to choose the read to me feature to be read a picture book, or if they're going to choose to read just a picture book without the read to me feature. One thing that I did notice about the picture books without the read to me feature that I did not like was that it's just the 2-page spread. So in order to, you see the whole thing, but you have to zoom in a little bit to actually see the words. Did I hit everything? Did you have anything to add?
love of learning or just cool? How are you finding this now that you're using this every day?
Um, I still haven't decided. I think we want kids to talk about books and they like to talk about their books, but I haven't noticed that I haven't figured out if they would rather do Epic to read or if they would rather read their um, hard book from the library. I haven't.
The physical books.
The physical.
And do
Some
you have a
kids,
classroom library in your library or in your school or your classroom? Sorry.
I do.
And have you seen, are they still checking physical books out from your classroom library versus Epic?
Yes, they are. My school actually is not one-to-one with devices. So that has made using Epic quite a bit more difficult than I thought it was going to my first year of teaching. Um, our school library is open, so they mostly check books out from there. But when given um, time, they do choose to get on Epic. It's just I have fifth grade and I've got a couple of boys that aren't always on task. So sometimes they get that privilege taken away. And that's another challenge.
So there we go. This is really just the beginning of our journey. We're just starting to get our feet wet in this. We've got a lot more work that we want to do on this. And that's one of the great thing about PDS schools. You know, Haley started as an undergraduate with some great questions, and I worked with her to create this research. She presented a poster, and now we're presenting at NAPDS, but it's only the beginning of it. As you can see, she has a lot more questions, and it's a partnership that we can continue to do. Even after she's graduated, she will always be an EdCat, and we will continue to do work like this. So if you have questions about the researchy side, you're welcome to contact me. If you have questions about a teacher using Epic, definitely give Haley a shout out, and our contact information is there. I'm old, so I'm on Twitter. She's young, so she's on Instagram. You're welcome to follow us, direct message us, and ask us any questions. Haley, any parting words about Epic for everybody who's watching this video?
I really enjoy it. I started this research with pretty much a negative attitude about it, that I know it is bad that kids are not using it. And then once I started to really dive in and then even use it myself as a classroom teacher, I love it. I will recommend it over and over and over again.
Well, thank you so much for spending these last couple of minutes with us. If you have more questions, again, don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much.